Sometimes there's nothing better than sitting down with a nice glass of wine, turning on some great music to relax, catch a great vibe, and leave the day behind. My friend up in Seattle, Al Nesbitt, and his band, The Alchemy, have recently released some new music that I really love, and I really think you will too, and I wanted to tell you about it. He's an amazing guitarist and composer, and he and his band have created some really unique and beautiful music. The album is called A Million Shiny Things, and it's a Spanish guitar influence album, which is always super sexy and cool, but also has a little bit of orchestral pop and even a little bit of rock, but just enough to feel it. It never loses the vibe, and it always feels really, really good. When you hear some of the guitar playing, you'll ask yourself, how in the hell does he play that? Seriously, it's breathtaking guitar work. So you can find A Million Shiny Things by Al Nesbitt and The Alchemy on all of the major streaming platforms, so you can easily listen to it wherever and whenever you'd like, at home, in the car, even at the office. And it's the perfect fit to have playing in the background, even if you're busy. Sometimes just having a great music playing while you're multitasking helps push things along a bit. Lastly, Al has vinyl for sale through his website. Vinyl always sounds so much better than any other format. You can order A Million Shiny Things through his website, www.alnesbitt.com. You'll see the online store section, and if you click it, it will direct you to his store. And the cool part is that Al is offering a 10% discount on the vinyl and CDs too, if you're still interested in CDs. Input the code UNDERSTOOD and the discount will be automatically applied. The vinyl will be shipped right to you in a super sturdy vinyl shipping box right away. So everyone head over to www.alnesbitt, that's ALNESBITT.com, to order this amazing new album that I know you're going to love. Don't forget to look for them later this year live. His website will have updates for performances later this year, so keep looking. Thank you for joining me again at Misunderstood. I'm your host, Rachel Uchitel. So have you guys ever taken a personality test or done something called the Myers Briggs? I think I have in the past, but I can never remember my results. And to be quite honest, I'm not really sure how accurate those things are or what they mean. So I decided to have a really fun guest today. He has a book coming out this week. His name is Eric G. And his new book, it's called The Power of Personality. He breaks down everything about your personality in a really fun, modern way. He has a background in psychology and is an expert in personal development, which he showcases in the book along with a lot of pop culture references mixed in to make the science a lot more fun. It's a great blueprint for figuring out not only where your personality fits in, but what your strengths and weaknesses are. And I think that's what makes the personality tests in his book so different, because it really explains how to use what you have to find your path to help you steer clear of negative people or things in your life, what kind of jobs you'd be best at, who you would match best with in dating. So we had a really fun chat, and he breaks all his personality types down into animal packs instead of just initials, which I love because it gives each person way more dimension. I don't know. I think it was a really fun, interesting episode. I think you might want to get the book after listening to him. And it's like a fun, like icebreaker or conversation piece. So his book comes out this week. So please listen to the episode, go take the test, and enjoy my conversation with Eric G. Hey, Eric, how are you today?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm great. Thanks so much. Thank you so much for joining me on Misunderstood. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
So what got you interested in the whole idea behind personalities?
I think it was growing up feeling that I was a little different than the people around me, or a large percentage of the people around me. And, that always feels kind of crappy. And I realized that over studying it over time, I realized that about half the population kind of has similar values. And when you have those similar values and you're half the population, they can get permeated into the mainstream media and society and all that. And I think in understanding personality better helped me understand myself better and realize that, it's okay to be different. It's okay to value different things in other people.
Absolutely. And being different is actually very normal too. So yes. I think that that's something to be said. So talk about the Myers Briggs. Is it Myers Briggs or Briggs?
Myers Briggs. A lot
Okay.
of people know it, I
And
guess.
that's
It's
kind of what we grew up old school as, like, where it explained what the personality traits were. Am I correct in that?
right. And I like how you said old school because it's very old. It's about, I'd say, 100 years old,
Oh,
almost 100
wow.
years old. Yeah. And so, I mean, I liked it. And I grew up, we all grew up like kind of learning about that. And, my methodology still has 16 types, just like Myers Briggs. But
Mhm.
I'm not really a huge fan of the dichotomy, like you're either introverted or extroverted, or you're either this or that. I think
Okay.
a lot of the complaints that people have is that they're like, well, I'm extroverted in this scenario, but I'm introverted in this scenario. And I totally understand it. It's based on context. And so I guess the difference in my methodology is more, it's focused more on motivation. And I think we value different things as in different groups of people value different things, and that motivates us in a different way. And then all the other stuff is external. So
Got it. Okay. So let's get into how you came up with your personality types and traits.
So I owned an education company for about 10 years. I had been studying it long before then, and I had done different leadership positions. I was part of a Boy Scout troop. I was a high school basketball coach. And the owning the tutoring company, though, helped me a lot because I got to work with about 1,000 students a year. And we
Mhm.
had about 50 to 60 teachers. And I think when you see that the relationships between teachers and how they interact based on the different personalities, it gave me a lot of the insights that I put into the book and developed. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So because we're mostly a podcast, I want to, and people don't have like the book in front of you, and people could be driving and listening. I want you to really get into what these personality traits are. And so you use animals to describe people, right? Like, let's break down. You talk about 16, is it 16 animals?
It's 16 animal types. Oh, and the book is called The Power of Personality, just
Yep.
so I don't forget to say that as many times as I can. And yeah, in The Power of Personality, I break it down to 16 animals, mainly because animals are easy to remember. I think a lot of times with MBTI, people get their 4-letter code
Right.
and they're just like, wait, what was I? It was like an
Oh
INJ.
yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've done different tests and I have the 4-letter code. To this day, I'm 49. I still can't remember it. So
Right. It's hard to
it
remember.
doesn't
I
matter.
mean, I don't even
But
remember mine.
I took your test and I remember my animal.
But
I'm not going to tell
don't
you.
please. Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
want to
I was
guess
going
it.
to say I want you to guess after you talk to me for 5 minutes. But okay, so let's break down. So do we break down the animals first, or we break down the 4 groupings?
We definitely want to break down the 4. I call them packs, obviously, because
Okay.
they're animals.
Mhm.
And there are 4 packs, and I base them on the roles that you might find like in a medieval village. So if you have
Right.
hunters, gatherers, shamans, and smiths,
Okay.
and it kind of helps to also explain the percentage of those people in the population. And of course, these are approximate figures, but when
Mhm.
you think of a society, what would you need more of? You need more gatherers, you need more hunters, and probably less smiths and shamans. And I think that holds true for society as well. And
Okay.
and each of those 4 packs, the members of those packs are motivated by one intrinsic value. And it doesn't mean you can't have different values from other packs, but it just means when push comes to shove, this is the thing that you really look for in life,
Right.
And I think the way that we like our personality traits manifest themselves is really focused on that central core value.
Got it. Okay, so let's start with number 1. So let's say it's hunters.
Mhm.
Are these people, I mean, is it like what it sounds like? These people are go-getters. They kind of are good at, you tell me, actually, I'm not going to make it up.
No, I mean, you're doing great, actually. That's exactly right. Yeah, they're the risk takers. They're the people who use tools. I mean, not necessarily an actual tool, even though they
Right.
do actually like to use actual tools a lot of times. But you think of hunters, we need a lot of them, and there are a lot of them, but they're less populated in society, mainly because hunting is dangerous, and so there's a lot of risks. And I
Got it.
think working with kids, if you have like a hunter child or hunter student, oftentimes they're told to be careful. And
Mm,
teachers always tell them that because most teachers are gatherers, and gatherers prioritize safety and security, where hunters prioritize like excitement and getting the most out of life. And I think that's already, you can see that's a conflict, baked
sure.
in the cake, right?
Right. And
So
so what are the 4 animals within the hunters?
there are foxes, sharks. I got to remember this: foxes, sharks, peacocks, and butterflies.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I know everyone says, wait, but a peacock and a butterfly don't hunt. I'm like, yes, I understand. Like, it's not always going to fit perfectly. Um, But peacocks and butterflies definitely hunt for the greatest sensation they can feel. So
Huh.
think of hunting
Okay.
that way. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now gatherers, what traits do they possess?
So gatherers, they seek safety and security, and I know a lot of them hate that because they're like, "Oh, wow, you're saying I'm boring." I'm like, "Yeah, but gatherers make up 50% of the population approximately. So everything that society tells us that we should value, like being responsible, like maybe getting married, having kids, buying a house, like being part of the PTA, like getting a job that's safe and secure, like those are all gatherer traits. And I think oftentimes we grow up thinking that that's what we should want. And that becomes a problem if we are not a gatherer. But it's great that we have gatherers. I mean, gatherers really do create the foundation of society. Like they tend to be like, the police officers, the accountants, elementary school teachers, things where safety is very important.
Right. Okay. And what are the four animals in gatherers?
There are stags, beavers, elephants, and bears.
Oh, all my favorite animals. Okay, that's nice. Okay, next one, shaman. I would think that means you're more insightful, you're educational. I don't really know.
Right. No, you're right on. Your instincts are perfect. Yeah. Like
Okay.
it means basically that when you think of a shaman, they basically base their observations or base their behavior based on less on observation and more on intuition.
Okay.
Right. So education is a big thing for shamans. It's based on morale, not necessarily morality, but morale. So it's about making sure that people feel good and there's like a vision within the community. They're the ones who they tell the gatherers when it's going to rain, but we don't need that many shamans to do that. So thus we need more gatherers.
Okay. All right. Interesting. All right. So, and then next would be smiths.
The smiths. Yeah. Smiths, just like you'd think like a blacksmith in a village, they create tools. So they don't necessarily use the tools, they create the tools. They desire information. Information is really important for them because with the information they have, they use that to create tools. So when you think of like nowadays, the Smiths would be like Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates, someone who's building technology that makes our society way more efficient. And you can imagine back in the day, Smiths would make wheels and levers and things like that. That would make things a lot easier.
There is no one that deserves a day dedicated to celebrating them more than moms do. Moms do just about everything. I can speak from experience. I'm a chauffeur, a cook, a teacher, a therapist. The list goes on and on. So for Mother's Day, let's go all out, whether you're getting a gift for your own mom or buying a little present for yourself. Get the gift that will keep on giving. Luxurious products from OSEA. Their Mega Moisture Duo is a value pack with 2 body care moisturizers, the Undaria Algae Body Oil and the Undaria Collagen Body Lotion. They both have that amazing citrusy scent that has become OSEA's signature. And for all you listeners right now, you can get an additional 10% off your first order with our code UNDERSTOOD at OSEA Malibu. So I just want to talk to you about a little bit of what I'm obsessed with right now from them. I ordered the Seabotic Water Cream. I ordered the Hydrolonic sea serum for your face. I ordered the Ocean Eyes and the lotion I already had and the oil I already had. Now, you guys, I'm not kidding when I say these are some of my favorites. I use this product before I go to sleep every night on my face. And then with the body stuff, I actually keep it in my shower. And I use the oil while the water's running. And then before I get out, I put the lotion on. My skin is so soft. People comment about the way my face and my skin looks so hydrated. I live in Florida, so it's easy to get really dry skin. And this has just been like such a solution for me that I haven't been able to find anywhere else. Treat mom to the everyday spa experience she deserves with clean vegan skin and body care from OSEA. Again, get 10% off your first order site-wide with code UNDERSTOOD at OSEAMalibu.com. You'll get free samples with every order and free shipping on orders over $60. So head to OSEAMalibu.com and use the code UNDERSTOOD for 10% off. These days, a lot of people are talking about the benefits of fasting, and they sound great. Weight loss, mental and physical performance, gut health. But on the other side of it, they worry about the whole not eating part. Well, that's exactly why Prolon was created. Prolon is a revolutionary plant-based nutrition program that nourishes the body while making cells cells believe that they're fasting. What makes Prolon really stand out is that it isn't a diet. It's a science based on a Nobel Prize winning discovery in medicine. Researched and developed over decades at the University of Southern California Longevity Institute and backed by leading U.S. medical centers, Prolon helps promote healthy blood sugar, supports cardiovascular health, and reduces abdominal fat. It's like nothing you've ever tried before. So a couple weeks ago, I did the 5-day program from start to finish. The whole process was amazing. I really was not hungry, you guys. You get everything you need delivered, prepackaged and ready to go. It's separated by the day. They literally make it foolproof. And the snacks, soups, and drinks are all designed to activate your body's fasting state. I loved, especially I loved the tomato soup. That was one of my favorites. And you feel full after you eat it. And I kind of wanted to order more of the soups just so I had them in my cupboard. I think people are always concerned when it comes to a fast that they will be hungry or get the urge to cheat. But I have to say, I really didn't. And I loved the idea of kind of pressing the reset button on my body for a week. And I will tell you that afterwards, I definitely felt different. I felt like I looked different. I just had a different glow about me. So I feel like it was very, very helpful. And I would definitely recommend it and do it again. So right now, Prolon is offering Misunderstood with Rachel Uchitel listeners 10% off their 5-day nutrition program. Go to prolon.com/understood. That's PROLONLIFE.com/understood for this special offer. That's prolonlife.com/understood. Got it. Okay. So what are the animals in the Smiths?
The Smiths would be killer whales, spiders, chimpanzees, and owls.
Goodness. Okay. And okay. So for people listening, so I've done the test. I know how it works. All the animals possess, different qualities and you get more specific with what that means for you. Right. I mean, so when you're doing this test, so I took a personality, is it called a personality test?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, so I took a personality test and it's quite easy, but I got very nervous that I wasn't picking the right answers. Is that common?
Yeah, this is coming from someone who has made a personality test. I'm not the biggest fan of personality tests, right? Because I mean, they're like cookie cutter questions, and people are answering them. And I once had my mom take a personality test. This is way back when I was doing, studying MBTI, and the question was like, are you more talkative or are you a good listener? And of course you put good listener because that sounds better. I'm like, you're not a good listener. You're a terrible listener.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. I think people see themselves differently than other people would say that they present themselves. So, I wonder how accurate it is when you're doing your own personality test. What are your thoughts on that?
It depends on the self-awareness of the test taker. I remember one time I had a friend say she was an owl, which is basically like the Einstein type. Not that owls are all like Einstein and that Einstein's a genius, but owls have that kind of social awkwardness. They're kind of quiet. And I was like, you're not an owl, you're a peacock. And she's like, why am I a peacock? And I'm like, because you're loud. And she's like, I'm not loud. I'm like, okay, I'm loud, but that's not like the most important thing about me. I'm like, yeah, it's not the most important thing, but it's the thing that I can see. And it's the thing that's the easiest to see. And I think so I told her to have a friend take the test for her. And of course the friend got a peacock for her.
Right, right. No, I understand. And it's also interesting because you see yourself differently as you're explaining, but also I think sometimes we present differently than how we feel internally. Like there are times when I can definitely be what you would call an extrovert when I really hate going out. I don't like being around people, quite frankly. I love being in my home. So I would say really I'm an introvert, but I can be an extrovert when I need to, and I can do it very well. So people that would talk about my personality would say that I'm an A-type or an extrovert when I internally don't feel that way.
Right. And it's really, you're right. Like it's how it manifests itself, right? Like with MBTI, just to take a fictional character, for example, Tony Stark would be extroverted. He'd be technically an ENTP. On my methodology, or with my methodology, it's a chimpanzee. And so he's extroverted, right? And you see him, he's talkative and stuff. But if you were to ask him, where would he want to be most of all? He'd probably say, oh, definitely in my workshop, building things by myself. Yeah. And I think that's why the context is important. And I think him being a Smith means that information is his motivation. So thus, even when he's extroverted, it manifests itself in a different way.
Right. So now explain to people why this is important. I mean, they can do these tests for fun and helps you get to know yourself better. But I really want to get into why it's important. Can this be a big deal when you are picking a career, for example?
That's a perfect question. Over the holidays, or long time, over New Year's, basically I was shucking oysters with my cousin's son. And he was like, we were talking, I got to talking, she's just about to graduate pharmacy school. And I was like, oh, okay, like, what do you want to do now? And he's like, I don't know, as long as it's a job that I don't have to be in the same place the whole day. And I was like, wow, boy, did you pick the wrong job? And yeah, I don't think he had ever thought about that.
Yeah.
And he himself is a hunter, he's a shark. And hunters like excitement. They like to be in different places. So I was like, oh, maybe you should think about pharmaceutical sales, because then you'd be able to travel, you'd be able to hustle, you'd be able to go to different places, and you could really work your way to the top. And he's like, well, I don't want to waste the information that I learned in pharmacy school. And I was like, yeah, but you only have one life. Do you want to waste that doing something you don't want to do?
Right.
And anyway, so he's like, oh yeah, that's a good point. And I do think like so many kids are pushed into fields like, doctor, engineer, now it's software engineer, when it's really important to figure out what you really want to do. And
I agree.
Has a lot to do with that.
Yeah. Okay. So I think what a lot of people want to know is about relationships. When I looked up again, what I came up with, and then I kind of Googled it so I could understand more. And then I wanted to see who I was compatible with. It was very interesting. So talk to me about your thoughts on, once you're aware of who you are, can it really help you with relationships? And should you be looking for the person that it says you're most compatible with?
That's a tricky question. I get asked that a lot, but oftentimes I get asked that by someone who's already in a relationship. And I was like, wait a minute, do you want me to like confirm that your relationship is good or tell you that it's terrible, based theoretically? So I'm not a big fan of the theory, but I do think that different personalities, when they're with another personality, will get along a specific way and will not get along a specific way. So that's consistent. So my philosophy is always like, hey, if you're okay with that problem or that conflict that you're going to have, then it's fine. Just don't try to change them, because that's not healthy. Right. So as long as you're okay with it, it's great. If you're not okay with that, then you probably want to find someone else.
Yeah. Okay. So. Very interesting. So it's funny because I do a lot of online dating, as people that listen to this podcast know. And I do see every so often, I mean, I don't put it on mine because, again, I can't remember it, but I do see men put IJ, whatever it is, the letters. And I always have to Google it, to know what it means. But now that I've read some of your book and I've taken the personality test, now I get it. And now it's more interesting. So I do think, it is really fun to get your book, peruse through it, really figure yourself out. And then also you can, I don't want to use diagnose, but you can really look into other people's personalities and get a better sense of them. Okay. So now, from talking to me for a little bit, do you want to guess what I am?
Well, I definitely had one in mind, and now you're scaring me because you said a couple of things. I'm like, uh-oh, I don't want to get the wrong one, because it's definitely pushing to a certain way. Can
ask me a bunch of questions if it helps.
Do you like to travel?
See, again, I'm so bad at answering these questions because, yes, I like to see new places and I like to travel, but I find it irritating to travel sometimes, and I am more comfortable in what I know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like what's irritating? Oh, like you're like not being used or familiar with
yeah, or like, the whole thing of like, if I want to travel to Paris, like traveling 10 hours and having to get in cars and shuttles and here and there, and it's like a lot. And I don't know if the word is bored easy, but it just feels like a whole to do when, I love being where I am, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I do love to travel. I've traveled almost all over the world, but, unless I do it the right way, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. Like, how about, have you ever gotten into a physical fight?
No.
Huh. Oh, and would you be like totally against that?
Well, I'm a girl. I don't know how I would get into a physical fight with someone. But
pull the hair, no.
No, I'm not a thrower or a pull of a hair type of person, I don't think.
Wow.
Not yet in my life.
I am like, do you like wine tasting?
No.
Whew. Okay, I am like
Wow, I
stumped.
really stumped you.
Yeah, my first guess was going to be a fox. That was
Hmm.
my guess. Am I
Hmm.
off? Am I
No,
wrong?
you're right.
Oh, okay, okay. Whew, thank goodness. I'm so glad. But yeah,
And why do you think that? Because I'm going to actually, when I find it here in a second, I'm going to read why I was a fox, but or what a fox means. But why did you pick that out?
because you said you liked to travel, but
Uh-huh.
and the things that you didn't like traveling weren't really the lack of familiarity. It was more just the how could you
The
say
logistics.
yeah, like the logistics, all the physical annoyances. My sister's gonna hate me for saying this, but it's my sister's a not a fox, she's a shark, but they're very similar. And the way
Mhm.
she parents, a lot of people might think, oh, she's like strict because wants them to follow the rules. I'm like, no, she doesn't care about the rules per se. She'll bend rules for sure. She just wants her kids to listen to her because it's just annoying. Sometimes they just annoy her like
Right,
viscerally. And she's like, no, just be quiet, you know?
right, right. That's
Um,
really interesting. All right, wait, I'm going to read what I came up with on your personality test. Okay. It says you are a fox, ESTP. Which those are the letters I never remember. Okay. You are a smooth operator that likes to make decisions on the fly. Totally true. Improvisation is your bread and butter, and you do it in a way that seems effortless. You're a hustler in the best sense of the word. You always have a deal that you're working on, or a venture you're pursuing, or perhaps two of each. Totally true. You're constantly on the lookout for new experiences to enjoy, as exploring the unknown makes you feel alive and gives you a perfect excuse to ignore those stodgy rules. So I thought that was super interesting.
Foxes like to fox, and I think foxes in general like, I was telling someone the other day, I'm like, foxes are hustlers. They're like, oh, that's so mean. I'm like, that's pretty cool. I think the term hustler is pretty cool. I don't know
I
how you
like
feel
that
about it,
term.
but yeah, I think foxes tend to be like, yeah, I'm a hustler. Like,
Yeah. No, I like that term for sure. So that means I'm a hunter, right?
mhm.
Okay. So now explain there's a bad side to it, right? To all
It's
of these personality traits.
right. And I'm a big, say a big fan. I tend, when I type people, I often tend to go to the negative only because generally you say the positive and all these things, everyone agrees, right? Like, even if you're not athletic,
Right.
someone says, "Oh yeah, your type is bound to be athletic." You're going to go back to the days when you played in JV basketball, in ninth grade, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I was on the, yeah, I was a 12th man on the JV team. I'm athletic." So, but no one ever claims a negative trait if it doesn't really belong to them.
Right.
So most of the time, if you say someone's negative trait and you're right on, they'll generally like, "Oh yeah, you're right. And generally our strengths come from our negative traits too, right? Like, I mean, it's a balance, right? So let's say a fox is like really super spontaneous, and great at adjusting and improvising. Obviously, the weaknesses might be that they might not be the most organized all the time, or
Mm,
they might be a little flaky sometimes, or they might not seem to be genuine all the time because they're adjusting based on their audience.
right.
So, and
Okay.
everyone has those, like, everyone has a certain kind of flaw. In the book, The Power of Personality, I have a little chapter devoted to that called deviant roles. And it's
Deviant.
just like someone's deviant role, like for each type. So
Right. I forget what it said now that a fox was, but it's something that it was so horrible. It was like it was like a con
he was
artist.
the con artist, right? Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
con artist. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely didn't like that. My friend who also, I had a couple of friends take your personality test, and one got a butterfly, and then the other one got a bear. And her deviant role was like she was, I forget the word, almost like a mobster, but it was like overprotective.
Right. The mob
Maybe for,
enforcer.
yeah, a mob enforcer for people and things that maybe they shouldn't be protective of. So I actually think that's a good trait.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think those are all good traits. I mean, I think the joke is that, it's good to accept them in a fun way, right? Because it's like the more we accept our negative traits, the better we have to, or the better chance we have to improve on them, but not
Yeah,
necessarily change ourselves.
exactly.
And the
Okay,
con
and
artist is not the worst one. The 40-year-old virgin is definitely 100% the worst one. No one wants to be that.
oh my
That's
God, which one is that the deviant for?
Oh, poor owls. The funny thing is, an owl actually gave me that idea to make it the 40-year-old version. So he was like, "Yeah, I just put that." I'm like, "Really? You don't think people are going to get offended?" He's like, "They will, but it's true." And
Oh, that's
so,
so
yeah,
funny.
no
Okay.
one wants to be that.
Yeah, no one wants to be that. So I want to know if can you go in your life from being one animal to another? I mean, obviously, if you answer the questions differently, you will come up as a different answer. So I guess my question is, throughout different experiences or your life, do you think that someone can go from one pack, I guess, to another? So can you be a hunter and then become a shaman?
That's a great question. I generally think that people don't change, they grow. So if you do find yourself relating more to another one later in life, that might have been something where you actually were that, and you're just growing into a truer version of yourself. I always say, like, puppies don't grow into cats, puppies grow into dogs.
Right.
So I think in general, we start a certain way. Probably my guess would be somewhere like maybe 6, 7, or 8, it becomes ingrained in us. And then from there, we can either grow to be a better version of ourselves or a worse version of ourselves based on like our experiences and our external factors.
Okay. Tell me some other things that I might not have learned from your book. Like, what was important to you that people that are reading the book, come away with?
Oh, gosh, I can't single out one particular thing, but I would say that in general, it's finding your anchor. So it's really important to find your anchor and find yourself. And then at that point, then you can kind of venture off and look for different like strengths from other types, not necessarily to change and become like that, but more adopt some of the skills that those types might have. So someone who might be a little more shy and reticent, but if they do need to promote themselves for like a book or something, they might have to like borrow things from a fox. They'd be like, okay, I'm not normally a fox, but foxes are great promoters, so I got to like take some of those skills and try them at least.
Right.
A little discomfort is important for growth.
Right. I'm curious, what personality are you?
I am a baboon, which is also not the most appealing animal. So when people complain about their animal, which some like beavers tend to complain because nobody wants to be a beaver, I'm like, hey, I'm a baboon. That's not that cool, but it is what it is.
Got it. And what does that mean?
A baboon is a shaman type. And so baboons, and it's a great example of like the difference in extroversion, right? I think a lot of times my version of extroversion would be different than, let's say, a peacock's version. A peacock might want to, do body shots in Cabo. A baboon that might not necessarily be the first instinct, but they will go up in front of people to advocate for an idea that they really believe in, that they really want people to know about.
Got it.
And our worst, we're preachy. We're preachy, sanctimonious, maybe a little reckless in what we say. But,
and then my last question, I was really curious how you came up with, in the personality test, I think there was 7 words you had to pick, right? So I'm just curious how you came up with like giving these 20 words and then having it narrowed down to 7, and then how that translates to the animal. Like, how did you come up with that?
So I had all the portraits of the animals written first, and I knew a lot of different subtle things about them. And I started thinking about what words would this type of animal personality type choose. Now that becomes difficult because the words that someone might choose might not necessarily be the best word to describe them. And that becomes tricky, right? Like if you say something like science, a gatherer will 100% pick that word, especially like, let's say a beaver type would pick that word, even though oftentimes science is associated with the Smiths, like Elon Musk or something. So, and then I did user testing. I tested it over like with 1,000 people at least, just to see where it'd go. And then I would pick different words and take words out and move it around. That was the process basically. But I do encourage people, I encourage people to buy the book, The Power of Personality, because in a sense, it is teaching people to be the test, which I think is important. I think a lot of times these books have a test in the beginning and then the entire book is filled with prescriptions. But I'm like, well, what if the diagnosis is wrong, right? I mean, if the diagnosis is wrong, then all the prescriptions you give are not going to be particularly helpful.
Right.
So, I encourage people to type themselves using the book.
Awesome. Okay, so The Power of Personality, it's out now, right? You can get it.
It's available for pre-order now. It's going to be coming out in 2 weeks on April 16th.
Okay, great. When we air this, it'll be out. We're going to air it the week that it comes out. And so tell people where they are able to get it.
You can order it online anywhere you buy books, but you'll also be able to get it at the big box stores, Barnes & Noble, Target, I believe, and hopefully your local bookstore. That's always a little tricky, but you can always order it online on Amazon, Barnes & Noble's bookshop.
Awesome. It's a really fun read, you guys. It's, it's so fun to be able to, analyze yourself, analyze your loved ones, analyze your enemies, whatever it is. But I think it'll be a really fun read. I'm sure you'll do really well with the book. What's next for you? I'm just curious. What are you up to?
Well, I'd love to write a book, now that you mentioned it, on romantic coupling. So exactly what we were talking about before, and literally just having it structured. This is how, if you're a stag and you're with a beaver, this is how it's going to play out. If you're and there's 16 types, right? So that's a lot of different combinations. And I'd love to write, that would be my next book. And kind of saying, well, you're going to have to be okay with this kind of problem because it's going to persist. But these are also some of the great things about it too. So
no, it's interesting because again, when I Googled what that 4-letter code meant, it said it was only like 5% of the population, but then the person that I would do best with was the person that had the most rare personality. And I was like, well, where the hell am I going to find that? So then I thought, oh, someone should put a dating app up that just has to do with personality traits. I bet you that's what like eHarmony does. You know what I mean? Because they have all these questions you have to answer and personality trait things. By the way, that's never worked for me. I don't suggest anyone use eHarmony. However, I actually think it's interesting to find out the animal you are, and then the animal you'd be best suited with, and then see how you could pair that. And if it becomes more popular and people know about it, it's like a really good conversation piece.
It's interesting that they said whatever you were looking at said the most rare. I know the theory, and theoretically, I know what animal would be best for you. Theoretically.
What would it be? Tell me.
It would be a bear, actually, just like your friend. Okay. Yeah, it would be the bear. Because I think you're a fan of Game of Thrones. So there is what character would you say you're like, oh yeah, this is definitely a fox? I'm like,
oh God. I mean, I don't know. What would you say?
Well, the big character is Jaime Lannister. Jaime Lannister is a fox, and Brienne of Tarth is a bear. And so their relationship, even though they're kind of different, they actually share a lot of similarities, and also they grow based on each other's, the flaws of one person are balanced by the strengths of the other, and vice versa. So I
love that. Okay.
Yeah. So bear would be theoretically the most ideal type for you. Like they'd be protective. And like you said, that their weakness you thought was a great thing. So maybe that's part of it too. You're like, oh yeah, I'd love a partner to be like that, super protective of me,
All right. Well, I might have to add this to my Bumble profile and see if anyone comes up as a bear.
The tricky thing with online dating is there are a lot more hunters out there on online dating, which makes a lot of sense because they're hunting.
Right.
And they might put a different thing just because
right.
It might reel in, but hunters do have a lot of fun. So if you're a hunter with a hunter, like you're a fox and you're with a peacock, you guys are gonna have a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting too old for that. I want a bear. So if any bears are listening, DM me. We'll get together. All right, Eric, thank you so much. Good luck with everything. Good luck with your book. Everybody, please go get The Power of Personality by Eric Gee. You will love it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to Misunderstood. I'm your host, Rachel Uchitel. Please be sure to subscribe to the show and give us a 5-star rating and review. You can support the show by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/misunderstood with Rachel Uchitel. Do you have ideas for the show or want to reach out? Email us at info_misunderstoodpodcast@gmail.com. That's spelled MISS understood. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Eric, thank you so much.